been away from camp for a couple days, and I just pulled up into the area. See, there's a road behind me, and I've noticed how much spring has been sprung, and I want the goodies. I'm gonna spend the day um, picking greens and other spring goodies. Roadsides are a good and a bad place to pick. And they're a good place to pick because most of these plants like disturbed soil, so like the sides of roads and such. There's a huge amount, and I'll show you in a second. There's a huge amount of different plants right on the side of the road that are delicious and edible. But the downside, why it's not good, is because car exhaust. This road does not get driven very much, and these plants have only been up for like a week or whatever. I mean, not very long. They've been pretty well covered, and all in all, they're very safe to eat. This is far better than what you see in the grocery store as far as chemicals on your food. And that's sad, but true. So, just in front of me, these guys right here. Oh, right here, I meant. That funny shaped leaf. It's pretty specific to daisies. And I'm not here for daisies necessarily. This is shotweed, and one of my favorite ones due to the peppery-ish taste to it. Excellent addition for salads. Really tasty. Nah, it tastes like a radish. I mean, that's or nasturtium maybe. If you know what nasturtiums are. This is what I'm after today. Right now, so I'm gonna go and collect the stinging nettles, and after this, I'm gonna be walking the water. I've noticed, especially with berries always ripen sooner around the water. I think it's probably just the amount of sun that they get on when the water opens up an area of the forest, and around that there'll be ripe berries before you find them elsewhere. It also gives them ample amount of water to ripen as well. But I'm gonna walk up and down the river. It's tricky walking, it's real tangly stuff. And I'll be collecting as I go. I'll show you the journey. This is a thistle. And thistles are edible, kinda. See, the downside is they have, most kids just call them pokey plants. Like, how in the world are you gonna eat that? And I've read about it. I don't understand how in the world you eat that. When they get really big, there's a lot more flesh to it. And I've tried peeling all the pokies off. It was just a painful pain in the fingers. Couldn't figure it out really, and I don't know why I never thought of this before, but the root should be good. So I just dug this one up. I cut myself a digging stick. It's kind of bluntly pointed the end, and it's a good digging stick for roots. Very traditional way. Everywhere around the world, indigenous people made simple tools like this. That's a root digging stick. So I tasted it. It tastes great, and the young, fresh spring sprouts have very tender roots. So I'm gonna be harvesting a few more roots. Artichokes are cultivated thistle, something that has been domesticated, a domesticated thistle plant, if you will. And we just the flower. So to my understanding, the whole plant's edible in most if not all thistle, bull thistle and Canadian thistle. Those two are very edible. I believe this is a bull thistle. Just the gnarliest, unfortunate plant, but you know, in all things there's beauty. So I really only want the main taproot. I'm gonna leave the rest of the plant. And I don't think anyone's gonna complain about me messing up the thistles. More dandelion daisy greens. I've had kimchi made out of the daisy greens. It's delicious. A little bit more on why side of the road is, like, these old dirt roads are a really good place to harvest. And it's because you find the variety of plants due to the disruption of dirt. It was only last year that this road got redone for logging. And so over here, got the road, and they plowed. And right here is a bunch of dirt that was piled up. They disturbed the dirt. They scraped and turned it over. And what that did is it caused all the seed banks, all the seeds that were in the dirt, to be exposed, giving a whole new variety of plants that have yet to be nibbled down and manipulated by the wildlife. And roadways, they don't have trees in the way. Obviously, there's no trees in the middle of roads. Optimally creates ways for seeds to float. For instance, the bull thistle, their seeds carry in the wind, and so you'll find a lot of them alongside roadsides due to the wind carrying them down, well, a road of wind, if you will. And stinging nettles, if there's a small handful of stinging nettles and you just break them apart, they spread like wildfire. It's a very tenacious plant. So when you're breaking up the little rhizomes, the small roots of the stinging nettle, you're creating a larger patch. There's always a reason to why plants are abundant in specific areas, and understanding those reasons will help you forage for them. Wood sorrel, sour clover, if you will. This is wild ginger. I like to be very selective when I harvest this plant, because it's relatively slow growing, doesn't spread very much, and I like to find a spot where there's a lot of it before I even consider taking any. And this patch is thick. There's more behind me and more in front of me. This whole area is inoculated with it, so I feel safe taking some. And the idea is I want to make a stir fry, and I don't have any seasonings, so this is a good green for eating, but it's mostly utilized as a seasoning for meats typically. But I want to try to make a stir fry. That's why I kind of passed up some of the green dandelion and the shotweed. I'll snack on it, but it's not really a stir fry material. So the roots Oh, this bad boy is really where the goodies are. The whole plant smells amazing and is delicious, but most of the concentration of flavor is in the roots. So that should be enough for the dish I'm making. Should probably be more than enough. I've never cooked with it yet. I've only snacked on it. I bet it makes an... I'm gonna try to catch me a fish for my stir fry. It's a beautiful little creek. No bites on this hole. Really, with small creek fishing like this, crystal clear water, you only get a handful of casts before they know the fish know you're here, and they're not going to do anything but hide. But this is something I've been seeing all up and down the creek. These weird things. It's the roots to it. More. That's it. I think this is cow parsnip, but they look kind of like mayapple. I think it's cow parsnip. And I'm trying to rack my brain because there's a way to get salt from plants by taking what I see. I'm trying to remember. I think you take cow parsnip and you burn it. And then the plant has a high salt content, and you can season your food with it, with the ash of this plant. But my brother ate this plant as a kid. He knows how to identify cow parsnips way better than I do because he had a traumatic experience with getting poisoned by it. So taking my brother Sam's warning, I'm not gonna mess with what I think is cow parsnips until I do extensive research into the use of it. But there is ways to get salt from plants, which, I mean, if you're going to be entirely self-reliant, you got two choices, three choices. You extract the salt from animals' blood, would be a good way to go. Or and that's how almost all predators get it. All herbivores get their salt from the plants or licking the ground where there's high salt content. Unfortunately, in the Pacific Northwest, there's not very much, at least in this area, there's not very many surface minerals in concentrations high enough to extract it from the dirt. But these plants pull it out of the ground and concentrate it. And if I knew which ones exactly it was and how to safely extract it from the plant, that's my best option. That's my best option, is to pull it from the plants like the herbivores do. But there's always the option of walking all the way to where there's salt water, and direction is easy. I can find salt water easy by just following downstream. It all leads to salt water. Maybe 100 miles downstream. I don't want to do that, but I can if I wanted. I'd rather just pull salt from the plants. Beaver sign. Not very fresh, but I know they're here. Things that make you go, huh? I'm pretty sure that's a toilet. A very crude, poorly designed toilet. And that is a dog toy duck thing, like a trainer, which, well, I got a bird dog, but I'm gonna leave this one alone. This is kind of weird. Not often you find a fake duck sitting on the john in the middle of the woods. It's a beautiful camp spot. I found out why there was a crapper nearby. These are awesome mushrooms. Again, I've showed them before. These are artisan conchs. They have medicinal value, but they're also just a thing of beauty. Just beautiful. You can draw on the bottom sides of them and cure them so they stay, so the image stays well. I think since I'm on the edge of the heavy woods and the water, this may be a good place to set my backpack down and then go look into the woods for some yellowfoot chanterelles for my stir fry. It's a long shot, but it's worth it. This is cool. Douglas fir, cedar. They're combined. I mean, not for long. They turn into two very different trees, but they're hugging each other so close. Other side of the tree, we got that guy, cat's tongue, or jelly tooth fungus. These guys, I don't know that you can cook them necessarily, but they're a tasty snack just as they are. Pretty Bella. I'm palling around in some woods that are not very oftenly explored, but I did find sign of man. There, it's really subtle. I mean, I made that print, but above me is some very steep terrain and some rocks kind of hold up that steep terrain. We have a fairly level spot. This is not level at all, but it's less steep than what's above and below me. So it's going to concentrate the animals to this area. I'd expect a lot of deer, everything to travel through here. But people are animals too, and they follow the path of least resistance. This is my biggest indicator, is this formation in the rotten log. It's been kicked and scuffed. People and animals walk over it, drag their feet over the bark, and it breaks off the rot. So you see that all up and down. That could be people or animal. But that right there, so often people will find a place where their foot can catch on this slippery log so they don't slide down. And once that spot is established, it's only human nature to find that spot again and use it over and over. And again, Bill, you're in the way. Deep, I didn't step here yet. Old deep imprints that are much larger than what you'd see in an elk. Bill's in my way, Bella. But yeah, so man has walked this trail last year. This fall, perhaps. Maybe last summer. This plant's Oregon grape. It gives us berries in the late summer. And it gives us really good medicine for our intestinal tract. But it also gives us food. from the leaves, from the fresh leaves. So right at the apex, the center, the top center of the growing stalk, the main growing stalk, which is this, these little pokey things are the fresh growths for the year. It's very early spring. Eventually those are gonna blossom out and create more of this shaped leaf. And when they're very fresh, they have less the pokies on them. They're a soft plant, a soft leaf rather than a waxy hard leaf. And when they're and they're very light green, like a neon green almost. So this plant and all others around are gonna have fresh new growth here. I'm guessing about a month from now. I'll be able to harvest some, and I'm not too crazy about the flavor. And this plant has a lot of I forget the active ingredients in it, but you can see it in the root. When you scrape the root, that bright yellow, that yellow has a name. I can't remember. It's gonna come to me like Tourette's. I can't remember what it's called, but that's the medicine in it. And so when you harvest this for medicine, you're hitting the roots, and that yellow is the good stuff. But because of that high chemical in it, which is medicine, you don't want to eat too much of this plant. And that's including the berries. I understand that too much of the berries will cause an imbalance within you. More of this weird jelly fungus, the cat's tongue. There's a large one right there. That's just gigantic, and typically I want to eat so many of them just because they're flavorless and a weird texture, but I don't have any water. So there's a high water content in these bad boys. And as I've been walking, I've been eating every little plant and small fungus that has any kind of moisture content in it to try to keep up with my hydration. It's starting to tax me. So, where I typically wouldn't eat these guys. This is one of the biggest ones I've ever seen. Bon appetit. Said it before, I'll say it again. This is one of my favorite plants to eat. Just like on the go, you know. Siberian miner's lettuce. I like to rinse the roots really good. Harvesting it in the late winter, early spring, you want to be careful because the frost, the really cold temperatures will kill the green growth and then let it decompose. So it's just like picking the rotten chunks of spinach out of your spinach mix. You don't want to eat the funk, and it's more prevalent during this time of the season where our temperatures get cold. Got one there. Got this guy I'm going to clean up and just rip the roots off. If I had 3 hands, it'd be a little easier, but then there's a little bit of a funk in the middle. I'm just trimming it up, and it's a tasty treat after that. That one's all trimmed up and ready to eat. I've been following this little stream that runs parallel to the main creek, and it comes to a stop here to where it's underground from here to wherever. And sometimes these are safe to drink. I want to talk about the different factors that make it okay or not okay. Dogs walking in your water is not okay. And there's plenty of other places to walk. Come on now. So the water's not running very quick. The quicker it's going, the more comfortable I feel. Also, I wouldn't even consider down there, because when it's on top of the ground, rather underground or in the ground, it has a lot of potential for contaminants. Birds poop in it, animals walk by, take a drink, take a dump, what have you, urine, all the ways that pathogens get carried. They're typically above ground activities. And I'm not going to just go and find any old creek, any old stream that's coming out of the hillside. Hillsides are a great place to look, but before considering drinking out of this, will walk to where I'm pretty sure the source comes from. This is an offshoot from the river, the creek. With all running water sources, there's going to be a high water table, meaning that creek is not only above ground, but it's also below ground as well. So there's a lot more water running than what it appears. If that dried up entirely, you dig a hole and you still find water. And so this water is most likely coming from that water source, which is likely to be pretty clean, but potentially contaminated. And this water kind of broke off from that water, and the underground filters it, and it filters it very effectively, running through sand and other inorganic particles to get it to where it is now. I have a strict set of guidelines that I go by when drinking out of water that I just find. Now, if the dog didn't walk through here a dozen times, I was going to take a drink. If there's a pretty minimal chance, I'll drink a little bit of it. I'll drink just enough to get by. Now, the thirstier you get, the more you want to take risk, which is just a very dangerous concept. Very, very dangerous factor there. So create a realistic list of parameters around your drinking water to keep yourself safe. Understand what type of pathogens you are likely to run across. My biggest concern in this area is Giardia. There's other potential minerals that arsenic and such that can end up in water depending on where you are. So yeah, go by your guidelines, stick to it. I want to show you guys the technique of cooking with rocks. So I made a wood platform and set a bunch of rocks on there. Got my tinder bundle and a bunch of cedar all split up. I'm just going to heat up all these rocks. And then I've got this big old flat rock that I'm going to use as a frying pan. Put my veggies and my greens that I picked in the pan with the hot rocks and stir fry them basically. Mm-hmm. Burning. Wow. And if I see it coming. Smells good. So the cooking process goes pretty quick. The preparation took forever. And I think all in all, when I'm done, I'm not going to have very much food. But it was quite the experience. Oh yeah, that root's done. I'd say it's all done. I mean, these rocks are very hot still. But short of a machete to make these tools and start the fire, this is 100% of nature. Threw a little bit of water on there and to steam it some, quicken that cooking process. Those nettles, once they get hot, it kills the sting in them. So this should be just fine, no sting left, as long as I cooked it thoroughly enough. And all in all, I got left with a relatively small amount of food, but got me some chopsticks, really big chopsticks. I need to cut one of these in half. Tastes familiar. Tastes like spinach with ginger in it. It's really good. Bound to be awful healthy too. And those roots kind of Turned out like water chestnuts, which I'm not a big fan of, but a very unique flavor blend. But it's familiar, which is odd because I've never had this before. Never cooked like this before either. So it's a great learning experience. I learned a bit about carving the right size and shape of tools. Those rocks were tricky to handle. Fun